By 1775, war between Britain and its American colonies wasn't a possibility anymore. It was a certainty. The 13 colonies had no navy, no professional army, no guarantee that anyone would come to help them. Across the Atlantic stood the British Empire, the most powerful military and economic force on Earth. Yet thousands of colonists were willing to risk everything and challenge that empire. Why? Because the road to revolution wasn't built in a single day. It was built through years of growing anger, distrust, and confrontation. Here are the 5 causes that ignited the American Revolution. The story begins after the French and Indian War. Britain emerged victorious, but victory came with a massive debt. To help pay the costs of defending its colonies, Parliament decided the colonies should contribute more money. New taxes soon followed. The Sugar Act taxed imported goods. The Stamp Act required official stamps on newspapers, legal documents, and other printed materials. To British leaders, these taxes seemed reasonable. To many colonists, they felt like an attack on their rights. The colonists had no representatives in Parliament, yet Parliament was making decisions that directly affected their lives. Their argument became famous. No taxation without representation. They weren't necessarily demanding independence yet. They simply wanted a voice. By 1770, tensions in Boston were reaching a boiling point. British soldiers had been stationed in the city to maintain order and enforce British laws. Many colonists saw their presence as an occupation. On the evening of March 5th, a confrontation erupted between a crowd of colonists and a small group of British soldiers. The crowd shouted insults and threw snowballs, ice, and debris. The soldiers became increasingly nervous.
You cannot oppress us all!
Then suddenly, shots rang out. When the smoke cleared, 5 colonists lay dead. The event became known as the Boston Massacre. Patriot leaders quickly used the incident as powerful propaganda, portraying Britain as a tyrannical government willing to kill its own subjects. Whether accident or deliberate act, the damage was done. Trust between Britain and the colonies suffered a devastating blow.
3 years later, another crisis erupted. In 1773, Parliament passed the Tea Act, giving the British East India Company special advantages in selling tea to the colonies. Many colonists saw it as yet another attempt to force British taxation upon them. On the night of December 16th, a group of colonists took action. Disguised as Native Americans, they boarded 3 British ships anchored in Boston Harbor. For hours, they worked in silence. Chest after chest of tea was smashed open and dumped into the icy water. By the end of the night, more than 92,000 pounds of tea had been destroyed. The Boston Tea Party wasn't just a protest. It was open defiance against British authority. And Britain would not let it go unanswered. The British response was swift and severe. Determined to punish Massachusetts and restore control, Parliament passed a series of laws known in Britain as the Coercive Acts. The colonists called them something else, the Intolerable Acts. Boston Harbor was closed. Self-government in Massachusetts was greatly restricted. British officials received greater protections, and colonists were required to provide housing and support for British troops. Britain intended to isolate Boston and make an example of Massachusetts. Instead, the opposite happened. Colonies that had often disagreed with one another began to unite. Many Americans believed that if Britain could strip away Massachusetts' rights, their own rights could be next. For the first time, the colonies began acting together as a common cause.
Everything finally came to a head on April 19, 1775. British troops marched toward Concord, Massachusetts. Their mission was simple: seize colonial weapons and military supplies before they could be used. But the colonists were ready. Messengers had spread the warning throughout the countryside. Local militias gathered. At Lexington, British soldiers encountered armed colonists standing on the village green. A tense standoff followed. Then a shot was fired. To this day, nobody knows who pulled the trigger. But once the shooting began, there was no turning back. The British continued to Concord, where fighting intensified. What had begun as a mission to seize weapons had become the opening battle of a revolution.
The American Revolution wasn't truly born at Lexington and Concord. It had been building for years. One tax. One confrontation. One act of resistance at a time. By the time the first musket fired, many colonists had already concluded that reconciliation with Britain was impossible. The war simply made that decision official. These 5 events didn't just start a war. They sparked an idea that ordinary people could challenge a powerful empire. That government derived its authority from the consent of the governed. From that struggle emerged a new nation, the United States of America. And more than 2 centuries later, the story of how the revolution began continues to be remembered every 4th of July.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the History Nutfesser for more.